Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reading chapter 10 of Indian in the Cupboard. Before we start, let's go ahead and set our purpose. How does the illustration of Little Bear and Boone at the breakfast truce seem ironic? So, think about what that means while I'm reading this. Chapter 10 is called Breakfast Truce. He crept downstairs. The house was still asleep. He decided to cook breakfast for himself and his cowboy and Indian. He was quite a good cook, but he'd mostly done sweet stuff before. However, any fool, he felt sure, could fry an egg. The steaks were out of the question, but beans were no problem. Omri put butter in the frying pan on the stove. The fat began to smoke. Omri broke an egg into it, or tried to, but the shell, instead of coming cleanly apart, crumpled up somehow in his hand and landed in the hot fat mixed up with the egg. Not as easy as he thought. Leaving the mess to cook, shell and all, he got a tin of beans from the cupboard and opened it without trouble. Then he got a saucepan and began pouring the beans in. Some of them got into the egg pan and somehow seemed to explode. The egg was beginning to curl and the pan was still smoking. Alarmed, he turned off the heat. The center of the egg still wasn't cooked and the beans in the pan were stone cold. But the smell in the kitchen was beginning to worry him. He didn't want his mother coming down. He tipped the whole lot into the bowl, hacked a lopsided slice of the loaf of bread, and tiptoed up the stairs. Little Bear was standing outside his longhouse with his hands on his hips, waiting for him. "You bring food?" he asked in his usual bossy way. "Yes. First, Little Bear want ride." "First, you must eat while it's hot. I've been to a lot of trouble to cook it for you," Omri said, sounding like his mother. Little Bear didn't know how to take this, so he burst into rather forced laugh and pointed at him scornfully. "Omri cook, Omri woman," he teased, but Omri wasn't bothered. "All the best cooks are men," he retorted. "Come on, you're going to eat with Boone." Little Bear's laughter died instantly. "Who Boone?" "You know who he is, the cowboy." The Indian's hands came off his hips, and one of them went for his knife. "Oh, knock it off, Little Bear. Have a truce for breakfast, otherwise you won't get any." Leaving him with that thought to chew over, Omri crossed to the crate in which Boone was grooming his white horse with a wisp of cloth he had found clinging to a splinter. He'd taken off the little saddle, but the bridle was still on. "Boone, I've brought you something to eat," said Omri. "Yup, I thought I smelt something good," said Boone. "Let's get to it." Omri put his hand down. "Climb on." "Aw, shucks, where am I going? Why can't I eat my food in my box where it's safe?" whined Boone. But he clambered up into Omri's palm and sat grumpily with his back against his middle finger. "You're going to eat with the Indian," said Omri. Boone leapt up so suddenly he nearly fell off and had to grab a hold of the thumb to steady him. "Heck no, I ain't," he yelled. "You just put me down, son, you hear? I ain't sharing my victuals, no lousy scalp sniffing Injun, and that's my last word." It was, as it happened, his last word before being set down within 6 inches of his enemy on the seed tray. They both bent their legs into crouches, as if uncertain whether to leap at each other's throats or turn and flee. Omri hurriedly spooned them up some egg and beans and held it between them. "Smell that?" he ordered them. "Now you eat together, or you don't eat any at all. So make up your minds. You can start fighting again after, if you must." He took a bit of clean paper and laid it like a tablecloth under the spoon. Then he broke off some crumbs of bread crust and pushed a little into each of their hands. Still, with their eyes fixed on each other's faces, Indian and cowboy sidled toward the big steaming bowl of food. From opposite sides, Little Bear, after hesitating, was first to shoot his arm out and dip his bread into the egg. This sudden movement startled Boone so much that he let out a yell and tried to run, but Omri's hand was blocking the way. "Don't be silly, Boone. he said firmly. "I ain't being silly. Them Injuns ain't just ornery and savage. Them's dirty. And I ain't eating from the same bowl as no Boone," Omri said. "Little Bear is no dirtier than you. You should see your own face." "Is that my fault? What kind of hallucination are you anyways, telling me I'm dirty when you didn't bring me no washing water?" This was a fair complaint, but Omri wasn't about to lose the argument on a side issue. "You can have some after breakfast, but if you don't agree to eat with my Indian, I'm going to tell him your name." The cowboy's face fell. "Now that ain't fur. That plum ain't no ways fur," he muttered. But hunger was getting the better of him anyway, so grumbling and swearing under his breath, he turned back and marched to the side of the spoon. By this time Little Bear was seated cross-legged on the piece of paper, a hunk of bean in one hand and a mess of egg in the other, eating heartily. Seeing this, Boone lost no time tucking in, eyeing the Indian, who ignored him. "Where's my coffee?" he complained after he'd eaten a few bites. "I can't start the day till I had my jug of coffee." Omri had completely forgotten about coffee, but he was beginning to feel pretty well fed up with being bossed around by ungrateful little men. So he settled down to eat the remains of the food and simply said, "Well, you'll have to start this one without any." Little Bear finished his breakfast and stood up. "Now we fight," he announced, and reached for his knife. Omri expected Boone to leap up and run, but he didn't. He just sat there munching his bread and beans. "I ain't finished yet," he said. "Ain't gonna fight till I'm plumb full of vittles. So you can just sit down and wait, Redskin." Omri laughed. "Good for you, Boone. Take it easy, Little Bear. Don't forget your promise." Little Bear scowled. He sat down again. Boone ate and ate. It was hard not to suspect after a while that he was eating as much as and as slowly as possible to put off the moment when they would have to fight. At last, very reluctantly, he scraped the last bit of egg from the spoon, wiped his hands on the side of his trousers, and stood up. Little Bear was on his feet instantly. Omri stood ready to part them. "Look here, Injun," said Boone. "If we're gonna fight fair. Probably ain't even a word for fair in your language. But I'm here to tell you, with me it's a fair fight or don't fight at all. Little Bear fight fair, kill fair, scalp fair." "You ain't gonna scalp nobody less'n you take it off with your teeth." For answer, Little Bear raised his knife, which flashed in the morning light. Omri, his hands on his knees, waited. "Yeah, I see it, but you ain't gonna have it much longer. And why ain't ya? Because I ain't got one. I only got my gun, and my gun's run plumb out of bullets. And what all I got is my fists. Oh, and one other thing. I got my hallucination here." He waved a hand at Omri without taking his eyes off Little Bear for a second. "And I know he don't want to see this here purty red scalp of mine hanging from no redskin's belt. So if I fight, it's gonna be face to face, man to man, Injun. You hear me? No weapons, just us two. Let's see if a white man can't lick a red man in a fair fight. Let's maybe, just maybe, you ain't red at all, but yeller." And Boone stepped out around the bowl of the spoon, threw his empty gun on the ground, and put up his fist like a boxer. Little Bear was nonplussed. He lowered his knife and stared at Boone. Whether Little Bear had completely understood the cowboy's strange speech was doubtful, but he couldn't mistake the gesture of throwing his gun away. As Boone began to dance around him, fist up, making little mock jabs toward his face, Little Bear was getting madder and madder. He made a sudden swipe at him with his knife. Boone jumped back. "Aw, you naughty Injun! I see I'll just have to set my hallucination on to you." But Omri didn't have to do anything. Little Bear had got the message. Throwing down the knife in a fury, he hurled himself onto Boone. What followed was not a fist fight or wrestling match or anything so well organized. It was just an all-in, no-holds-barred two-man war. They rolled around on the ground, pummeling, kicking, butting with their heads. At one point, Omri thought he saw Boone trying to bite. Maybe he succeeded because Little Bear suddenly let go of him, and Boone rolled away as swift as a barrel down a slope and onto his legs, and then, with a spring like a bow-legged panther, onto the Indian again, feet first. Little Bear let out a noise like oof and caught Boone by both ankles and heaved him off. Little Bear picked up a clod of compost and flung it at him, catching him full in the face. Then Little Bear got up and ran at him, holding both fists together and swinging them as if he swung a battle axe. They caught the cowboy a heavy whack on the ear, which sent him flying to one side. But as he flew, he caught Little Bear with a blow to the chest with one boot. That left them both on the ground. The next moment, each of the men found himself pinned down by a giant finger. "All right, boys, that's enough," said Omri, in his father's firm, end-of-fight voice. "It's a draw. Now you must get cleaned up for school." All right. So again, how does the illustration of Little Bear and Boone at the breakfast truce seem ironic? So how does that seem kind of the opposite of what it really was? And what does the word truce mean in the title? Breakfast truce. Have you ever heard that word before? If you haven't, maybe try to find out what that word means. I will see you later. Have a great day and be kind.